What if I told you that the world's most ancient cities weren't built by primitive humans struggling with stone tools and basic agriculture, but by visitors from the stars who possess technology so advanced it would make our modern engineering look like child's play? What if the very foundations of human civilization were laid not by our ancestors, but by beings who traveled across the cosmos to reshape our planet? Picture this. You're standing in the ruins of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, staring at massive stone pillars that were somehow carved, transported, and erected over 11,000 years ago. That's 6,000 years before Stonehenge, 7,000 years before the pyramids. According to mainstream archaeology, the people who built this weren't even supposed to have agriculture yet. They were hunter-gatherers, yet here you are, looking at precisely cut limestone blocks weighing up to 16 tons, arranged in perfect circles with intricate carvings of animals and symbols that we still can't fully decode. But here's where it gets really interesting. What if this wasn't built by humans at all? What if Göbekli Tepe, along with dozens of other impossibly ancient sites around the world, represents something far more extraordinary? What if these weren't just the world's first cities, but the first collaborative projects between humanity and an intelligence from beyond our world? I know what you're thinking. Aliens building cities? That sounds like science fiction. But stick with me, because by the end of this investigation, you're going to see evidence that will make you question everything you thought you knew about human history. We're going to explore sites from Turkey to Peru, from Easter Island to the deserts of Egypt, and we're going to uncover patterns that mainstream archaeology simply cannot explain. The truth is, there are structures on our planet that defy every conventional explanation. Stone blocks cut with laser-like precision. Massive monuments aligned to celestial bodies with astronomical accuracy that rivals our modern computers. Transportation of multi-ton stones across impossible terrain, and construction techniques that we still cannot replicate today, even with all our advanced technology. But before we dive into the evidence, let me be clear about what we're investigating here. We're not talking about little green men landing in flying saucers and building pyramids for fun. We're exploring the possibility that an advanced civilization, whether extraterrestrial, interdimensional, or perhaps even a lost human civilization with technology we can't comprehend, played a direct role in establishing the earliest urban centers on Earth. And the implications of this possibility are staggering. If true, it means that human civilization didn't gradually evolve from simple farming communities to complex cities over thousands of years. Instead, it means we received a technological and architectural jumpstart that catapulted us from hunter-gatherers to city builders almost overnight in historical terms. Let's start with the most obvious question. If aliens or an advanced civilization built these early cities, why would they do it? What would be the motivation? Well, think about it from their perspective. Imagine you're an advanced species capable of interstellar travel, and you discover a planet with primitive but promising life forms. These beings, humans, show potential for intelligence and creativity, but they're scattered, nomadic, struggling to survive. What's the most effective way to help them develop? You don't just hand them advanced technology because they're not ready for it. They'd either worship it as magic or destroy themselves with it. Instead, you give them something more fundamental. You teach them to build permanent settlements. You show them how to organize into communities. You help them create the first cities. Cities aren't just collections of buildings. They're the foundation of all human progress. It's only when humans began living in permanent settlements that we developed writing, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, art, and every other pillar of civilization. Cities forced us to cooperate on a massive scale, to specialize our skills, to create systems of governance and trade. In short, cities made us truly human. So, if you wanted to guide a species toward advanced civilization, helping them build their first cities would be the perfect intervention. Subtle enough that they'd think they did it themselves, but transformative enough to change the entire trajectory of their development. Now, let's look at the evidence. And I'm going to warn you right now, what you're about to see is going to challenge everything you learned in history class. First, let's talk about precision. When we look at the oldest megalithic sites around the world, we find a level of stone cutting and fitting that shouldn't have been possible with the tools available at the time. Take Pumapunku in Bolivia. This site is over 2,000 years old, yet the stone blocks here are cut with such precision that you cannot fit a piece of paper between the joints. The surfaces are perfectly flat, the angles are exactly 90 degrees, and some stones have complex interlocking shapes that would challenge modern machinery. The local indigenous people have always said their ancestors didn't build Pumapunku. According to their oral traditions, it was built by the gods in a single night. Now, mainstream archaeology dismisses this as mythology, but what if it's actually a cultural memory of real events? What if their ancestors really didn't build it? Here's what's really fascinating about Pumapunku. The stones there show evidence of machine tooling, not just precise cutting, but actual machine marks. Drill holes that are perfectly round and straight, cuts that are impossibly clean, surface finishes that look like they were created with modern grinding equipment. Geologist Robert Schoch has examined these stones and concluded that they show clear signs of having been worked with advanced tools that shouldn't have existed in the ancient world. But Pumapunku isn't unique. We see the same impossible precision at Sacsayhuaman in Peru, where massive limestone blocks weighing up to 200 tons are fitted together so perfectly that you can't slide a knife blade between them. We see it at the Osirian in Egypt, where granite blocks are joined with such accuracy that the entire structure seems to be carved from a single piece of stone. We see it at the megalithic temples of Malta, where limestone blocks are shaped and positioned with geometric perfection. And here's the thing that really bothers mainstream archaeologists. This precision appears suddenly in the archaeological record. There's no gradual development of stone-cutting technology. One day, humans are supposedly chipping away at rocks with crude hammers, and the next day, they're creating precision stonework that we struggle to replicate today. It's as if the knowledge appeared out of nowhere, or maybe it came from somewhere else. Let's talk about transportation. Moving massive stone blocks is one of the greatest challenges in construction even today. We have cranes, trucks, hydraulic systems, and sophisticated engineering techniques, yet we still struggle to move objects weighing hundreds of tons. So how did ancient civilizations transport blocks weighing up to 1,000 tons or more across difficult terrain? The conventional explanation is ramps, rollers, and lots of human labor. Thousands of workers pulling massive stones up wooden ramps using ropes. But when engineers actually try to test these theories, they run into serious problems. The ramps would need to be enormous, requiring more material than the monuments themselves. The wooden rollers would be crushed under the weight. The ropes would snap, and even if you could somehow make it work, it would take decades to move a single block. Yet these ancient sites contain hundreds or thousands of massive blocks, all transported and positioned with apparent ease. The Great Pyramid alone contains over 2 million stone blocks, some weighing up to 80 tons, all lifted and placed with incredible precision. If it took years to move each block using conventional methods, the pyramid would have taken thousands of years to build, not the 20 years that Egyptologists claim. But what if these blocks weren't transported using conventional methods? What if they were levitated using technology we don't understand? That might sound impossible, but we actually have historical accounts of stones being moved through levitation. In the 17th century, a Swedish physician named Olaus Rudbeck wrote about witnessing Tibetan monks moving heavy stones by focusing sound vibrations on them. The stones would supposedly rise into the air and float to their desired locations. Now, mainstream science dismisses this as folklore, but acoustic levitation is a real phenomenon. We can levitate small objects using sound waves in laboratory conditions. What if ancient civilizations had mastered this technology on a much larger scale? There are also accounts from various cultures of gods or divine beings using sound or vibration to move massive stones. The Welsh legends of Merlin moving the stones of Stonehenge through magic. The biblical account of the walls of Jericho falling to trumpet sounds. The Hindu epics describing flying palaces and weapons that could level mountains. What if these aren't mythological stories, but cultural memories of advanced technology in action? And then there's the alignment issue. Many of the world's most ancient sites are aligned with astronomical phenomena with a precision that rivals modern observatories. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north, with an accuracy of just 3/60ths of a degree. The stones of Stonehenge frame the summer and winter solstices perfectly. The temples of Angkor Wat in Cambodia mirror the constellation Draco as it appeared 12,000 years ago. This level of astronomical knowledge shouldn't have been possible for ancient civilizations that supposedly lacked writing, mathematics, and sophisticated measuring instruments. To achieve these alignments, the builders would need to understand precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that takes 26,000 years to complete. They would need to know the exact dimensions and shape of the Earth. They would need to make calculations that require advanced mathematics. Yet according to mainstream history, these civilizations were just learning to grow crops and make pottery. The disconnect between their supposed technological level and their actual achievements is staggering. But here's what's really interesting. These astronomical alignments aren't random. They often point to the same celestial events and the same star systems. Orion appears again and again in ancient monuments around the world. The Pleiades star cluster is referenced in cultures from the Americas to Asia to Europe. Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky, is tracked and celebrated by civilizations that supposedly never communicated with each other. Why would primitive agricultural societies be so obsessed with these particular stars, unless they weren't the ones doing the observing? Unless someone else was teaching them which stars to watch and why those stars were important. The pattern becomes even more intriguing when we look at the global distribution of these ancient sites. They're not randomly scattered across the globe. Instead, they form patterns and alignments that suggest a coordinated, worldwide effort. The Great Pyramid, Nazca Lines, Easter Island, Angkor Wat, and dozens of other megalithic sites align along specific latitudes and longitudes, creating geometric patterns across the Earth's surface. This global coordination would have been impossible for ancient civilizations that supposedly lacked ocean-going vessels, navigation technology, and communication systems. Yet somehow, people separated by thousands of miles of ocean managed to build monuments that align with each other with mathematical precision. The only way this makes sense is if there was a single, coordinating intelligence directing these construction projects worldwide. An intelligence with global reach, advanced technology, and the ability to travel vast distances. An intelligence that wasn't human. But let's dig even deeper into something that will absolutely blow your mind: the construction techniques themselves. When modern engineers study these ancient sites, they don't just find impressive stonework. They find evidence of construction methods that we literally cannot explain with our current understanding of physics and engineering. And I'm not talking about speculation here. I'm talking about hard, measurable evidence that has left experts completely baffled. Take the underground city of Derinkuyu in Turkey. This isn't just a cave system that was expanded over time. This is an engineered marvel that extends 18 stories underground, with ventilation systems so sophisticated that fresh air circulates perfectly throughout all levels. The city could house 20,000 people, along with their livestock and food stores. But here's the kicker. It was carved directly out of solid volcanic rock, using techniques that leave perfectly smooth walls and precisely angled passages. The conventional explanation is that Bronze Age people spent centuries chiseling this out with simple tools, but when you actually examine the walls under magnification, you find something impossible. The rock surfaces show characteristics consistent with high-frequency vibration cutting, not chiseling. It's as if the rock was somehow made soft and pliable, then carved like clay, then hardened again into its final form. This same anomaly appears at sites around the world. In the Andes Mountains, there are stones that appear to have been molded rather than cut. Corners that curve in ways that would be impossible to achieve by carving, but perfectly natural if the stone was temporarily liquefied. Local legends in Peru speak of a plant that could soften stone, allowing it to be shaped by hand before hardening again. Mainstream science says this is impossible, but the physical evidence suggests otherwise. And then there's the question of power tools. We're finding more and more evidence of ancient drilling and cutting that required high-speed rotation and consistent pressure, things that should have been impossible without electricity. In Egypt, there are granite boxes in the Serapeum that show drill marks indicating the drills were spinning at thousands of revolutions per minute while cutting through solid granite. That's beyond what we could achieve with hand tools even today. The Egyptians themselves have no memory of creating these boxes. They found them already there and incorporated them into their own religious practices. But they clearly didn't make them. The precision is too high, the technology too advanced. So who did? Here's where it gets really wild. We're not just talking about individual sites anymore. We're talking about a global network of interconnected locations that seem to have been built according to a master plan. And this plan becomes visible when you start looking at the mathematics. The distances between major megalithic sites often correspond to specific mathematical ratios. The golden ratio appears again and again. Pi shows up in dimensions and proportions with suspicious frequency. The measurements often correlate to the dimensions of the Earth itself, the polar circumference, the equatorial diameter, the distance to the Moon. It's as if whoever built these sites was encoding fundamental mathematical constants into the very architecture. But why would you do that unless you were trying to preserve important information for future generations? Unless you were trying to leave a message that would survive even if the civilization that built it disappeared. And speaking of messages, let's talk about the art and symbols found at these sites, because this is where things get really interesting from an alien contact perspective. At Göbekli Tepe, the stone pillars are covered with intricate carvings of animals and symbols. But these aren't just decorative. When researchers analyze the positions of the animals, they correspond to constellations in the night sky. The entire site appears to be a massive star map, showing the positions of celestial bodies at a specific point in time around 10,950 BCE. But here's what's fascinating. That date corresponds to a time when astronomical calculations show there was a massive cosmic event, comet impacts that would have caused global catastrophe, climate change, and mass extinctions. It's as if Göbekli Tepe was built specifically to commemorate or warn about this event. The same astronomical encoding appears at sites worldwide. The Nazca lines in Peru aren't just random drawings in the desert. They're a sophisticated astronomical calendar that tracks the movements of celestial bodies over thousands of years. The Easter Island statues aren't just facing the ocean randomly. They're positioned to track specific stars and planetary movements. But here's the really mind-blowing part. Many of these astronomical references point to star systems that are incredibly far away. Sirius, which appears in the mythology of cultures worldwide, is 8.6 light-years from Earth. The Pleiades cluster is would primitive agricultural societies be so focused over 400 light-years away, wide on these distant stars, unless someone was telling them that these places were significant. The ancient Egyptians claimed that their gods came from Sirius. The Dogon tribe in Africa has incredibly detailed knowledge about Sirius B, a white dwarf star that wasn't discovered by modern astronomy until 1862 and wasn't photographed until 1970. Yet the Dogon have known about it for centuries, including details about its orbital period and density that they couldn't possibly have observed with the naked eye. How did they know this? Their own legends say they were taught by visitors from Sirius who came to Earth in the distant past. Mainstream anthropology dismisses this as coincidence or contamination from modern sources, but the evidence suggests their knowledge is genuinely ancient. Similar stories appear worldwide. The Hopi describe star beings who helped establish their civilization. Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime stories tell of sky gods who taught humans to build permanent settlements. Mesopotamian texts describe the Anunnaki, beings who came from the heavens and established the first cities. Now, you might argue that these are just mythological stories, and normally I'd agree with you. But when you combine them with the physical evidence we've been discussing, a different picture emerges. What if these aren't myths at all? What if they're historical records of actual events, passed down through oral tradition for thousands of years? And here's something that will really make you think. Many of these ancient sites contain technology that we're only just beginning to understand. The acoustic properties of certain chambers create sound frequencies that can alter human consciousness. The magnetic properties of stone arrangements create measurable electromagnetic fields. The geometric proportions induce specific psychological and physiological responses in visitors. It's as if these sites were designed not just as monuments or temples, but as functional devices. Devices that could influence human consciousness, facilitate communication, or serve purposes we haven't even figured out yet. The Great Pyramid, for example, isn't just an impressive pile of stones. It's a sophisticated machine with internal chambers that create specific acoustic resonances. When you make sounds inside the king's chamber, they resonate at frequencies that match human brain waves. Some researchers believe the pyramid was designed as a consciousness-altering device, possibly for communication with non-human intelligence. Similar acoustic anomalies exist at megalithic sites worldwide. The stone circles of Britain create standing wave patterns that can induce altered states of consciousness. The chambers beneath the Mayan pyramids generate infrasound that affects human perception and emotion. These aren't accidents of construction. They're engineered features designed to interact with human consciousness in specific ways. But why would ancient civilizations build consciousness-altering devices unless they were trying to facilitate communication with something beyond normal human perception? Unless they were trying to maintain contact with the intelligence that helped them build these sites in the first place? And then there's the global timing issue that mainstream archaeology really struggles to explain. These advanced megalithic sites don't appear gradually over thousands of years as you'd expect if humans were slowly developing the technology. Instead, they appear suddenly, all around the same time, roughly 12,000 years ago, right after the end of the last ice age. It's as if someone flipped a switch and suddenly humans worldwide started building impossible stone monuments with advanced astronomical alignments and sophisticated engineering. The conventional explanation is that climate change at the end of the Ice Age somehow triggered a global technological revolution. But that doesn't explain why the technology was so advanced, or why it appeared so uniformly across disconnected cultures. A much simpler explanation is that something external intervened, something with advanced technology and global reach, made contact with human civilizations worldwide, and helped jumpstart our development from hunter-gatherers to city builders. This intervention theory also explains one of the biggest mysteries in archaeology. Why did human civilization suddenly accelerate so dramatically around 10,000 BCE? For millions of years, human development was slow and gradual. Stone tools improved incrementally. Social organization remained simple. Then suddenly, almost overnight in evolutionary terms, we had agriculture, writing, mathematics, astronomy, metallurgy, and massive stone monuments. That kind of rapid advancement doesn't happen naturally. It requires external input, knowledge transfer, technological assistance. It requires teachers who already possess the knowledge being transferred. At the earliest, and if you look cities that emerged after this technological revolution, they don't look like the gradual experiments of primitive people learning to build. They look like sophisticated urban centers designed by people who already understood city planning, hydraulic engineering, defensive architecture, and social organization. Take Çatalhöyük in Turkey, for instance. This settlement dates back to 7,500 BCE, making it one of the world's oldest cities. But when archaeologists first excavated it, they were stunned by its sophistication. This wasn't a primitive village that slowly grew into a town. This was a fully planned urban center from day one, with advanced architecture, complex social organization, and technological features that shouldn't have existed for thousands more years. The houses in Çatalhöyük were built with remarkable uniformity and precision. They shared walls in a honeycomb pattern that maximized space efficiency and structural stability. The interiors featured raised platforms, storage areas, and ventilation systems that maintained comfortable temperatures year-round. Most remarkably, the entire city was designed to be entered from the rooftops, with no streets at ground level. This created a unique, three-dimensional urban environment that required sophisticated planning and engineering knowledge. But here's what's really puzzling. The people who built Çatalhöyük supposedly had no prior experience with permanent settlements. According to mainstream archaeology, they went directly from nomadic hunting and gathering to complex urban planning without any transitional period. It's like watching someone who's never seen a car suddenly design and build a Ferrari. The artwork found throughout Çatalhöyük is equally mysterious. The walls are covered with elaborate murals depicting complex scenes that suggest advanced understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and possibly even dimensional physics. Some of the geometric patterns are so intricate that researchers needed computer analysis to understand their mathematical relationships. These aren't the crude drawings of primitive people. These are sophisticated technical diagrams created by minds that understood advanced concepts. And then there's the metallurgy. Çatalhöyük residents were working with copper, lead, and other metals at a time when humans supposedly hadn't even mastered basic agriculture. They were creating alloys, forging tools, and producing metal objects with techniques that required precise temperature control and chemical knowledge. Where did they learn these skills? The same pattern repeats at other early cities around the world. Jericho in Palestine, dating to around 9000 BCE, features massive stone walls, sophisticated water management systems, and defensive architecture that suggests advanced military engineering. The builders understood siege warfare, hydraulic engineering, and large-scale construction management. These weren't skills that developed gradually. They appeared fully formed. In the Americas, we find even more dramatic examples. The ancient city of Caral in Peru, dating to around 3500 BCE, was built with urban planning principles that wouldn't be seen again until the Roman Empire. The city features pyramids, plazas, residential areas, and sophisticated irrigation systems, all laid out according to a master plan that maximized functionality and efficiency. But Carol's builders had supposedly never seen a city before. They were isolated from other civilizations by thousands of miles of ocean and mountains. Yet somehow they developed urban planning concepts that matched or exceeded anything being built in Mesopotamia or Egypt at the same time. How is that possible without some form of external guidance? The engineering at these early sites is particularly baffling. Take the water management systems, for example. Ancient cities like Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley featured underground sewage systems, public baths, and water distribution networks that were more advanced than anything found in medieval European cities thousands of years later. The precision of the engineering suggests understanding of fluid dynamics, public health principles, and hydraulic engineering that shouldn't have existed in the ancient world. Even more mysterious are the astronomical alignments built into these early cities. The layout of Teotihuacan in Mexico perfectly mirrors the positions of planets in our solar system, with the sizes and distances of the pyramids corresponding to the relative sizes and orbital distances of celestial bodies. The builders somehow knew the precise dimensions of planetary orbits and the relative sizes of planets they couldn't possibly have observed with primitive tools. The same astronomical precision appears in city layouts worldwide. Ancient Babylon was aligned to track the movements of specific star systems. The Cambodian temple complex at Angkor represents a detailed star map of the constellation Draco. The Ethiopian rock churches of Lalibela mirror the constellation patterns visible in the night sky when they were built. This suggests that whoever was guiding the construction of these early cities possessed advanced astronomical knowledge and wanted to encode that knowledge into the very architecture. But why? What was the purpose of creating these massive stone star maps disguised as cities and temples? One possibility is that these alignments served as a form of communication or navigation system. If you're an advanced civilization capable of space travel, you'd need reliable reference points for navigation across galactic distances. By encoding stellar positions into permanent stone monuments on planetary surfaces, you create a network of navigational beacons that can guide travelers across vast cosmic distances. But there's another, even more intriguing possibility. What if these astronomical alignments were designed to activate or operate some form of advanced technology? What if the cities themselves were components in a larger technological system that we don't yet understand? Recent research has revealed that many ancient sites exhibit unusual electromagnetic properties. The stones at certain locations generate measurable electrical fields. The geometric layouts create specific electromagnetic resonance patterns. Some sites even show evidence of having been subjected to intense electromagnetic radiation that altered the molecular structure of the stones. At Nan Madol in the Pacific, the massive basalt blocks that form this ancient city exhibit magnetic properties that shouldn't exist in natural basalt. The stones appear to have been artificially magnetized using techniques unknown to modern science. Local legends say the blocks were levitated into place using magical powers, but what if they were actually manipulated using electromagnetic technology? Similar electromagnetic anomalies appear at megalithic sites worldwide. The stones of Stonehenge generate ultrasonic frequencies when struck. The granite blocks in Egyptian pyramids contain high concentrations of quartz crystals that create piezoelectric effects under pressure. The ancient city of Tiwanaku in Bolivia is built from stones that exhibit unusual magnetic orientations aligned to Earth's magnetic field. It's as if these ancient sites were designed to interact with natural electromagnetic fields in ways that could generate or manipulate energy. Modern attempts to recreate these effects have been largely unsuccessful, suggesting that the ancient builders possessed knowledge of electromagnetic physics that we're still trying to understand. But perhaps the most compelling evidence for alien involvement in early city construction comes from the cities that were abandoned suddenly and mysteriously, as if their builders simply vanished overnight. Take Puma Punku again. This site shows clear evidence of having been abandoned abruptly in the middle of construction. Massive stone blocks lie scattered around the site as if work stopped suddenly and was never resumed. Some blocks appear to have been damaged by an explosion or similar catastrophic event. The precision-cut stones show scorch marks and crystallization patterns consistent with exposure to extremely high temperatures. What could cause an advanced civilization to abandon such a massive construction project so suddenly? Local legends speak of a great catastrophe that forced the gods to flee back to the stars, leaving their work unfinished. Mainstream archaeology attributes the abandonment to warfare or climate change, but the physical evidence suggests something more dramatic. The same pattern of sudden abandonment appears at sites worldwide. The builders of Easter Island's massive stone statues apparently stopped work abruptly, leaving unfinished statues scattered across the landscape. The creators of the Nazca lines in Peru ceased their activities suddenly, abandoning geometric patterns that were left incomplete. The megalithic builders of Malta disappeared without trace, leaving behind temples and underground structures that were never finished. In each case, the abandonment appears to have been sudden and permanent. These weren't gradual declines caused by resource depletion or social collapse. These were abrupt cessations, as if the builders received urgent orders to leave immediately and never return. What could cause such coordinated, global abandonment? One possibility is that whatever intelligence was guiding human civilization faced its own crisis and was forced to withdraw. Perhaps they were recalled by their own civilization, or faced threats that required them to leave Earth suddenly. Or perhaps their intervention was always intended to be temporary, and they withdrew once they had successfully jump-started human development. This withdrawal theory would explain another puzzling aspect of ancient history. Why did the advanced construction techniques disappear? If humans had developed these technologies themselves, why didn't they continue to use and improve them? Instead, we see a pattern of technological regression. The precision stonework becomes cruder over time. The astronomical alignments become less accurate. The engineering becomes less sophisticated. It's as if the knowledge was never fully transferred to humans, but remained dependent on external guidance. When that guidance was withdrawn, human civilizations lost access to the advanced technologies and gradually reverted to simpler methods. But here's what's really fascinating. The withdrawal wasn't complete. Throughout human history, there are accounts of periodic contact with advanced beings who provided guidance during critical moments. The Sumerian accounts of the Anunnaki returning to Earth periodically to check on human progress. The Egyptian stories of gods descending from the sky to restore order during times of chaos. The Mayan prophecies of feathered serpent gods returning at the end of cycles. These accounts suggest that while the primary phase of direct intervention ended around 10,000 years ago, there has been ongoing monitoring and occasional guidance throughout human history. Perhaps the early cities were just the first phase of a long-term project to guide human development, with additional interventions occurring as needed. This would explain why certain technological breakthroughs in human history seem to appear suddenly, without clear developmental precedents. The invention of writing, the discovery of metallurgy, the development of agriculture, the understanding of mathematics and astronomy. In each case, the knowledge appears to emerge fully formed in multiple locations simultaneously, suggesting external input rather than independent human discovery. Modern SETI researchers acknowledge that if an advanced alien civilization wanted to guide the development of a primitive species, they would likely do it subtly, providing just enough assistance to accelerate development without creating dependency. The establishment of permanent settlements and cities would be a perfect intervention point, providing the foundation for all subsequent technological and social advancement while allowing the species to develop its own unique characteristics. And if you look at the archaeological evidence with this framework in mind, it all starts to make sense. The impossible precision of early megalithic construction, the sudden appearance of advanced urban planning, the global coordination of construction projects, the encoding of astronomical knowledge into architectural layouts, the electromagnetic anomalies, and consciousness-altering properties of ancient sites. These aren't the random achievements of primitive humans stumbling towards civilization. These are the carefully planned interventions of an advanced intelligence working to guide human development according to a specific agenda, an agenda that required establishing permanent settlements as the foundation for everything that would follow. But if this is true, it raises some profound questions about human nature and our place in the universe. Are we truly an independent species that developed civilization through our own efforts? Or are we the products of an ongoing experiment, guided by forces we don't yet understand toward purposes we can't yet imagine? The evidence suggests that we may not be alone in the universe, and we may never have been alone. The builders of our earliest cities may have been visitors from the stars, working to transform a primitive species into something greater than we could have become on our own. And if that's the case, then perhaps they're still watching, still guiding, still working toward whatever ultimate goal they had in mind when they first taught our ancestors to stack stones into walls and create the foundations of human civilization. The question we need to ask ourselves is this: if these early cities were indeed built with alien assistance, why did the technology suddenly plateau? Why didn't human civilization continue advancing at the same rapid pace? The answer might be more unsettling than you think. Consider what happened after these magnificent early cities were established. For thousands of years, human technology remained relatively stagnant. We built impressive monuments, yes, but using increasingly crude methods compared to the precision we see in the earliest sites. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built around 2500 BCE, represents the pinnacle of Egyptian engineering, but the pyramids built just centuries later are noticeably inferior in construction quality and precision. It's as if humanity received a massive technological download, used it to build these incredible early cities, and then gradually lost access to the knowledge. The skills weren't passed down. The techniques weren't preserved. Instead, we see a pattern of technological decay that spans millennia. But what if this wasn't an accident? What if it was intentional? Think about it from the perspective of an advanced alien civilization conducting a long-term experiment on human development. You can't simply hand over all your technology to a primitive species and expect good results. They'd either destroy themselves with it or become completely dependent on you. Instead, you need to provide just enough assistance to jumpstart their development, then step back and let them evolve naturally. The early cities might have been designed as a kind of civilization starter kit, permanent settlements that would force humans to develop agriculture, specialization, social organization, and governance. Once these fundamental systems were in place, the alien teachers could withdraw, confident that humans would continue developing on their own trajectory. This explains why we see such advanced engineering in the earliest sites, followed by a gradual decline in precision and sophistication. The alien-built structures served as templates that humans attempted to copy, but without understanding the underlying principles, each successive generation of builders introduced more errors and simplifications. But here's where it gets really interesting. What if the alien builders left behind more than just impressive monuments? What if they embedded information into these structures that we're only now beginning to decode? Modern computer analysis of ancient sites is revealing mathematical relationships and geometric patterns that were invisible to earlier researchers. The Great Pyramid, for example, encodes the value of pi, the golden ratio, and the speed of light in its dimensions. Stonehenge contains astronomical calculations that track celestial cycles spanning thousands of years. The temples of Angkor Wat represent a detailed map of cosmic time cycles that Hindu and Buddhist traditions say span millions of years. These aren't coincidences. These are information storage systems disguised as monuments. The alien builders may have known that their direct intervention would be temporary, so they created permanent repositories of knowledge that humans could access once they developed the mathematical and technological sophistication to decode them. We're living in that moment right now. For the first time in human history, we have the computer processing power and mathematical understanding necessary to analyze these ancient structures at a level of detail that reveals their hidden information. And what we're finding is staggering. The ancient city of Teotihuacan in Mexico, when analyzed using modern archaeological techniques, reveals an urban planning system that incorporates advanced knowledge of acoustics, psychology, and even quantum physics. The layout of the city creates specific sound frequencies that affect human consciousness. The positioning of buildings generates electromagnetic fields that align with Earth's natural energy grid. The proportions of the pyramids encode mathematical constants that weren't supposed to be known until the modern era. But perhaps most remarkably, when you overlay the layouts of ancient cities from around the world, they form geometric patterns that mirror the structure of DNA, the arrangement of atoms in crystals, and the distribution of galaxies in the universe. It's as if the alien builders were encoding fundamental information about reality itself into the very foundations of human civilization. This raises an extraordinary possibility. What if these early cities weren't just the beginning of human civilization, but the beginning of a planned evolutionary process? What if the alien builders weren't just helping humans develop technology, but were actually modifying our species at a fundamental level? Recent advances in genetics have revealed that human DNA contains significant amounts of so-called junk DNA that doesn't appear to serve any obvious biological function. But what if this genetic material isn't junk at all? What if it's dormant code, waiting to be activated when humans reach a certain level of development? Some researchers have noticed correlations between the geometric patterns found in ancient cities and the structure of inactive genetic sequences in human DNA. The same mathematical ratios appear in both contexts. The same spiral formations, the same fractal relationships. It's as if the ancient monuments were designed as activation keys for genetic programs embedded in our species. This would explain some of the more mysterious aspects of human evolution. Why did human brain size increase so dramatically over such a short period? Why do we have capabilities like abstract mathematics and artistic creativity that seem to go far beyond what would be needed for basic survival? Why do humans alone among Earth species show evidence of what scientists call sudden evolutionary leaps rather than gradual development? The answer might be that we're not entirely natural. We might be a hybrid species, created through genetic modification by an advanced alien civilization that used our planet as a laboratory for a long-term evolutionary experiment. The early cities would fit perfectly into this scenario. They weren't just places for humans to live. They were research stations where alien scientists could monitor and guide human development. The precise astronomical alignments weren't just impressive displays of knowledge. They were communication arrays for maintaining contact with the alien home civilization. The electromagnetic anomalies weren't accidental byproducts of construction. They were deliberate features designed to influence human consciousness and behavior. And the sudden abandonment of these sites makes perfect sense in this context. The initial phase of the experiment was complete. Humans had been successfully modified and given the basic tools for civilization. The monitoring stations could be shut down, and the alien researchers could withdraw, leaving automated systems to continue observing human progress from a distance. But if this is true, where are these automated systems today? How would we recognize alien monitoring technology that's been operating for thousands of years? The answer might be hiding in plain sight. UFO sightings have been reported throughout human history, often concentrated around ancient megalithic sites. These aren't random encounters. They're scheduled maintenance visits to monitoring equipment that was installed thousands of years ago. The objects people report seeing aren't necessarily spacecraft carrying alien crews. They might be automated drones, designed to collect data and perform routine maintenance on surveillance systems embedded in ancient monuments. The reason UFO sightings often occur near places like Stonehenge, the pyramids, and other megalithic sites isn't coincidence. These locations house the monitoring equipment. This would explain why UFO behavior seems so impersonal and systematic. The objects appear, perform specific tasks, and disappear without making contact. They're not trying to communicate with humans. They're simply collecting data and transmitting it back to the alien civilization that created us. And the data they're collecting isn't just about our technology and society. It's about our ongoing evolution. Remember those dormant genetic sequences we discussed? They might be programmed to activate at specific points in human development. The alien monitors would need to track our progress to determine when we're ready for the next phase of the experiment. Recent breakthroughs in human consciousness research might be triggering some of these genetic activations right now. People around the world are reporting increased psychic abilities, enhanced intuitive capabilities, and spontaneous spiritual experiences. These might not be random phenomena. They might be signs that our alien-modified genetics are beginning to activate in response to our technological and social development, reaching certain predetermined thresholds. The timing is significant. We're simultaneously discovering the hidden information encoded in ancient monuments, developing the technology to decode genetic sequences, and experiencing what many researchers describe as an acceleration in human consciousness evolution. It's as if multiple systems that were set in motion thousands of years ago are now converging towards some kind of culmination. But what is that culmination? What was the ultimate goal of the alien experiment that began with the construction of our earliest cities? One possibility is that we're being prepared for contact. The alien civilization that modified our genetics and guided our early development might be planning to reveal themselves once we reach a certain level of technological and spiritual maturity. The early cities were just the first phase of a much longer process designed to transform humanity into a species capable of joining a galactic community. Another possibility is even more profound. What if the entire experiment is designed to create a new kind of consciousness? What if humans aren't just being prepared to meet aliens, but are actually being developed into something that transcends both human and alien limitations? The mathematical constants encoded in ancient monuments don't just represent knowledge about physics and astronomy, they represent universal principles that apply to consciousness itself. The geometric patterns found in early cities mirror the structures that organize matter, energy, and awareness throughout the cosmos. We might be looking at blueprints for a form of consciousness that can interface directly with the fundamental forces of reality. This would make humans incredibly valuable from a cosmic perspective. We wouldn't just be another intelligent species. We'd be a new kind of being, capable of bridging the gap between matter and consciousness, between individual awareness and universal intelligence. The alien civilization that created us might have been working toward this goal for millions of years, carefully guiding evolution on multiple worlds to produce species capable of this kind of transcendent awareness. And if that's the case, then the early cities weren't just the beginning of human civilization. They were the first step in a cosmic evolution that's still unfolding today. Every technological breakthrough, every expansion of human consciousness, every moment of artistic or spiritual inspiration might be part of a vast plan that began when the first alien teachers showed our ancestors how to stack stones into walls. The implications of this possibility are staggering. It means that everything we think we know about human purpose and destiny might be incomplete. We're not just trying to survive and reproduce and build comfortable lives for ourselves. We're participants in a cosmic experiment that could reshape the very nature of consciousness throughout the universe. But there's a catch. If this is true, then we're approaching a critical juncture. The alien experiment has been running for thousands of years, gradually building towards some kind of culmination. The information hidden in ancient monuments is being decoded. The dormant genetic programs are beginning to activate. The monitoring systems are detecting that humans are approaching readiness for the next phase. What happens next might determine not just the future of human civilization, but the success or failure of an experiment that represents millions of years of careful planning by an intelligence far beyond our current understanding. And that brings us to the most important question of all. If aliens did build our earliest cities as part of a long-term experiment in consciousness evolution, what can we do to ensure that we're ready for whatever comes next? The answer might lie in understanding that we're not passive subjects in this experiment. We're active participants. The choices we make, the consciousness we develop, the way we treat each other and our planet, all of this might be influencing the outcome of a cosmic process that began thousands of years ago when unknown teachers first showed our ancestors how to transform from nomadic hunters into builders of permanent cities. The stones are still there, waiting to reveal their secrets. The genetic programs are still activating, waiting for us to understand their purpose. The monitoring systems are still watching, waiting to report back to their creators about whether their experiment has succeeded. What kind of report will they send? The answer might be more complex than we initially thought, because as we stand on the threshold of potentially making contact with our creators, we're discovering that the experiment might not be finished. In fact, we might be entering its most critical phase right now. Think about the timing of our current technological revolution. We've developed the ability to decode DNA, manipulate genetic sequences, and even create artificial life. We're on the verge of achieving artificial intelligence that could surpass human capabilities. We're planning missions to Mars and beyond. We're beginning to understand consciousness itself as a measurable phenomenon. All of this is happening just as we're discovering the hidden information in ancient monuments and experiencing what researchers call an acceleration in human psychic abilities. The convergence isn't accidental. It's precisely timed. But here's what's really fascinating about this timing. Our current technological capabilities are approaching the same level that the alien builders possessed when they first intervened in human development. We're learning to cut stone with laser precision. We're developing acoustic levitation. We're creating electromagnetic fields that can manipulate matter. We're even experimenting with consciousness-altering frequencies. In other words, we're becoming like them. And that might be exactly the point. What if the entire alien experiment was designed to create a species that could eventually match their own capabilities? Not through dependence or technology transfer, but through guided evolution that allows us to develop these abilities independently. We wouldn't be inferior copies of our creators. We'd be equals, capable of standing alongside them as partners in whatever cosmic project they're pursuing. This explains why the alien intervention was so carefully calibrated. They gave us just enough assistance to jumpstart civilization, but not so much that we became dependent. They encoded information in our monuments, but required us to develop the mathematical sophistication to decode it ourselves. They modified our genetics, but left the activation triggers tied to our own developmental progress. They were creating not servants, but successors. But succession requires proving ourselves worthy. And that's where our current global situation becomes critically important. Because how we handle the challenges we're facing right now might determine whether we graduate to the next level of cosmic citizenship or fail the test entirely. Look at what's happening on Earth today. We have the knowledge to solve problems like climate change, poverty, and disease, but we're struggling with cooperation and implementation. We have weapons capable of destroying our entire civilization, but we haven't developed the wisdom to prevent their use. We're on the verge of creating artificial intelligences that could enhance human capabilities, but we're worried about losing control of our own creations. These aren't random challenges. They're tests. Specifically designed challenges that require us to demonstrate the qualities that would make us suitable partners for an advanced galactic civilization. Can we cooperate on a global scale when faced with existential threats? Can we develop technology responsibly without destroying ourselves? Can we expand our consciousness beyond tribal thinking to embrace a truly cosmic perspective? Can we balance individual creativity with collective responsibility? The alien builders faced these same challenges millions of years ago when they were developing into an advanced spacefaring civilization. They had to learn to cooperate, to develop technology wisely, to expand their consciousness beyond their home planet. The tests we're facing now might be the same tests they faced, carefully recreated to determine whether we're capable of following the same developmental path. And here's the crucial part. We might not get multiple chances to pass these tests. The geological and archaeological evidence suggests that this isn't the first time an intelligent species has emerged on Earth. There are hints of previous civilizations that reached high levels of development before disappearing suddenly and completely. What if those were earlier versions of the same experiment? What if the alien builders have been running this experiment multiple times, with different species or different versions of humanity, waiting for one iteration to successfully navigate the tests and prove ready for the next phase? The sudden disappearances we see in the archaeological record might not be random catastrophes. They might be resets, clearing the board to try again with improved parameters. This would explain some of the more mysterious aspects of human history. Why do we have legends of multiple creation events? Why do ancient texts describe previous ages that were destroyed and replaced? Why does the genetic evidence show sudden population bottlenecks that reduced humanity to just a few thousand individuals? We might be looking at the remnants of previous experimental runs that didn't quite succeed. Each iteration learned from the failures of the previous version, gradually refining the parameters until we reached our current configuration. But that means we're not guaranteed success. We're simply the latest attempt, with all the accumulated learning from previous failures built into our design. The pressure is real, and it's increasing. Consider the acceleration in technological development over the past century. We went from horse-drawn carriages to space travel in less than 100 years. We went from mechanical calculators to artificial intelligence in decades. We went from discovering DNA to editing genetic code in a single lifetime. This isn't normal technological progression. This is an intentionally accelerated timeline. Something is forcing the pace of human development, pushing us toward critical decision points faster than we might naturally progress. It's as if there's a deadline approaching, and we need to demonstrate our readiness before time runs out. The UFO disclosure that's been happening gradually over the past few years might be part of this acceleration. Government acknowledgements of unidentified aerial phenomena, military releases of previously classified footage, official statements about objects displaying technology beyond current human capabilities. This isn't random transparency. It's preparation. We're being gradually conditioned to accept the reality of non-human intelligence, not through dramatic revelation that would cause panic, but through careful, measured disclosure that allows us to adjust psychologically. It's the same approach you'd use if you were preparing to make formal contact with a species that's been developing under your guidance for thousands of years. But the timing suggests urgency. Why now? Why is disclosure happening during this particular period of human history, when we're simultaneously facing climate crisis, developing transformative technologies, and experiencing consciousness evolution? Because this might be the moment of final evaluation. The alien builders might be preparing to make themselves known because the experimental timeline is reaching its conclusion. They need to determine whether humanity is ready to join their cosmic community or whether another reset is necessary. The early cities they helped us build were just the foundation. Everything that's happened since, every technological breakthrough, every expansion of human consciousness, every moment of cooperation or conflict has been building toward this evaluation. We're approaching the final exam for a test that began when our ancestors first learned to stack stones into permanent shelters, and the grading criteria might be more sophisticated than we realize. It's not just about technological capability. Advanced technology without wisdom leads to self-destruction, as we're discovering with nuclear weapons and artificial intelligence. It's not just about individual intelligence. Species-level intelligence requires cooperation and collective decision-making abilities that we're still developing. The real test might be whether we can evolve beyond our current limitations while maintaining the creativity and individuality that makes us valuable. Can we become a truly cooperative species without losing our innovative spark? Can we develop cosmic consciousness without abandoning our humanity? Can we master advanced technology without being mastered by it? These questions aren't abstract philosophical puzzles. They're practical challenges that will determine our species' survival and future. And the answers we provide through our actions over the next few decades might determine whether the alien experiment that began with the construction of our earliest cities ultimately succeeds or fails. But here's what gives me hope. The fact that we're even asking these questions suggests that we're approaching the level of awareness necessary to pass the test. A species that's capable of recognizing its own limitations and actively working to transcend them is demonstrating exactly the kind of conscious evolution that would impress advanced alien evaluators. The ancient monuments are still teaching us. The genetic programs are still activating. The monitoring systems are still watching. But now we're becoming conscious participants in the process. rather than unconscious subjects. We're beginning to understand our role in a cosmic story that's much larger and more significant than we ever imagined. The builders of our earliest cities left us more than impressive stone monuments. They left us a pathway toward transformation that we're only now beginning to consciously walk. Whether we successfully complete that journey will depend on choices we make in the very near future. Choices that will echo through cosmic time and determine not just our own destiny, but possibly the fate of consciousness itself throughout the universe. The stones are still standing, still encoding their secrets, still waiting to see what will become. The question isn't whether aliens built our earliest cities. The question is whether we'll prove worthy of the gift they gave us when they did. The foundations were laid thousands of years ago. Now it's up to us to complete the construction of whatever we're meant to become, and time might be running shorter than we think. The evidence we've uncovered paints a picture that should fundamentally change how we view our place in the cosmos. But there's one final piece of this puzzle that might be the most important of all, and it's happening right now, in real time, as you're watching this. Because what if the alien builders didn't just create our earliest cities and then disappear? What if they're still here, still guiding, still testing us through methods so subtle that we mistake their interventions for natural phenomena or human achievement? Think about the patterns we've observed. Technological breakthroughs that appear suddenly without clear developmental pathways. Scientific discoveries made simultaneously by researchers who have never communicated with each other. Moments in history when humanity seems to leap forward collectively, as if receiving information from an external source. The development of agriculture around 10,000 BCE didn't happen in one location and spread gradually. It emerged independently in at least 7 different regions around the world within a few thousand years of each other. The mathematical concepts underlying advanced engineering appeared simultaneously in cultures separated by vast oceans. The understanding of astronomical cycles manifested in civilizations that supposedly had no contact with each other. This pattern continues into the modern era. The Industrial Revolution wasn't sparked by a single inventor or discovery. It emerged across multiple continents, as if the entire human species suddenly gained access to new knowledge. The technological explosion of the 20th century happened so rapidly that many of our greatest scientists described their breakthroughs as intuitive leaps, rather than logical progressions. Einstein famously said that his theory of relativity came to him in a flash of insight that felt like receiving information from outside himself. Tesla claimed that his inventions were downloaded directly into his consciousness from an unknown source. Even our current computer revolution began with simultaneous breakthroughs by researchers who were working independently but somehow arrived at identical solutions. What if these weren't coincidences or examples of human genius? What if they were carefully timed information transfers from our alien creators, providing just enough knowledge at precisely the right moments to keep us progressing along a predetermined developmental path? This would explain why technological progress often seems to accelerate during periods of crisis. When humanity faces challenges that threaten our survival or development, breakthrough solutions appear almost as if on cue. The development of antibiotics during disease outbreaks, the creation of new energy sources during resource crises, the invention of communication technologies just as global coordination becomes essential. It's as if someone is monitoring our progress and intervening whenever we're about to fail critical tests. Not by solving problems for us, but by ensuring that the right people receive the right insights at exactly the right moments to allow us to solve problems ourselves. But this level of intervention requires constant observation and precise timing. It requires a presence that's been continuously active throughout human history, making micro-adjustments to keep us on track. Where would such a presence be based? How could it operate without being detected? The answer might be closer than we think. What if our alien creators never left Earth at all? What if they simply moved their operations underground, using the same advanced construction techniques they employed to build our earliest cities to create vast subterranean facilities that remain hidden from surface detection. Think about the underground complexes we've already discovered. Derinkuyu in Turkey extends 18 stories beneath the surface and could house 20,000 people. The tunnels beneath the pyramids form an intricate network that we still haven't fully mapped. Ancient mines around the world show evidence of excavation techniques that removed millions of tons of rock with impossible precision. But what if these weren't built by ancient humans at all? What if they were alien research facilities, designed to house ongoing operations while remaining hidden from the developing human population on the surface? The precision of construction, the advanced engineering, the electromagnetic anomalies we find at these sites would make perfect sense if they were built by the same intelligence that helped construct our earliest cities. Modern deep earth scanning technology has revealed vast empty spaces beneath many ancient sites, chambers and tunnels that extend far deeper than any known human construction. Government agencies often restrict access to these areas, claiming safety concerns or archaeological preservation. But what if they're protecting something much more significant? Recent whistleblower accounts from military and intelligence sources describe underground facilities that house technology beyond current human capabilities, craft that appear to defy physics, materials with properties that don't match any known elements, entities that don't appear to be entirely human. These accounts are often dismissed as disinformation or fantasy, but they align perfectly with what we'd expect to find if our alien creators maintained ongoing operations beneath the surface. The monitoring doesn't stop with underground bases. If you've been paying attention to recent developments in space surveillance, you've probably noticed an interesting pattern. Objects in our solar system that don't behave according to known physics, asteroids that change course without explanation, phenomena around other planets that suggest artificial intervention. Even our own moon exhibits characteristics that many researchers find difficult to explain through natural formation. What if these aren't separate mysteries? What if they're all components of an integrated monitoring and guidance system that's been operating since our species first began developing consciousness? A system designed to track not just our technological progress, but our social, psychological, and spiritual evolution. This brings us to perhaps the most profound implication of everything we've discovered. If aliens built our earliest cities as part of an ongoing experiment in consciousness evolution, then we're not just being observed and guided, we're being prepared for something specific, something that requires us to reach very particular capabilities before we're ready. And the timing of current events suggests that preparation phase might be nearing completion. So, here we are, standing at the threshold of a revelation that could reshape everything we thought we knew about human origins and our place in the cosmos. The evidence is overwhelming, the patterns undeniable, and the implications staggering. From the impossible precision of ancient stonework to the global coordination of megalithic sites, from the encoded astronomical knowledge to the consciousness-altering properties of our earliest cities, we've uncovered a story that mainstream archaeology simply cannot explain through conventional means. Whether these monuments were built by extraterrestrial visitors, interdimensional beings, or a lost civilization with technology beyond our current understanding, one thing is certain: we are not the first advanced intelligence to walk this planet. And if we're being tested, if we're approaching some cosmic graduation ceremony that began when our ancestors first learned to stack stones into permanent settlements, then the choices we make right now might determine whether we pass or fail the most important exam in human history. The stones are still standing, still waiting to reveal their final secrets. The question isn't whether aliens built our earliest cities anymore. The question is, what are we going to do with that knowledge? And are we ready for whatever comes next?